everyone. My name is David McLeod, and I am your life mastery coach and author of the delightful little book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the co-authors in the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. Today, we embark on episode 244, and our topic today is the alchemy of forgiveness. You know, anyone who is serious about personal growth and spiritual evolution eventually tries to find and embrace some sense of emotional freedom. This can be a tricky and sometimes convoluted aspect of your journey. Well, a big part of what I try to do here at Life Mastery TV is to illuminate and share topics which make your journey a little bit easier and more enjoyable. And that's why for this episode, I'm going to remind you about the amazing power, actually, of forgiveness. Embracing forgiveness for others is a profound and, for many people, surprising act of liberation. As you learn to release grudges, resentments, and past hurts, you actually free yourself from heavy burdens that may have weighed upon your heart and mind for years. Forgiveness is a tool that allows you to experience more peace, joy, and harmony in every aspect of your life. Now, even more importantly, you are probably carrying around some, maybe even a lot of judgments loaded with guilt and shame that are directed towards yourself. Therefore, it's vital to develop a practice of extending forgiveness to yourself. Self-forgiveness is an essential component of personal growth and resilience. By releasing self-condemnation, you can activate the healing power of compassion that allows you to give yourself permission to heal from past mistakes and shortcomings. It's a great way to break free from the cycle of guilt and shame, empowering you to cultivate a deeper sense of self-acceptance and worthiness. My guest for this episode of Life Mastery TV is a newcomer to the program, forgiveness expert, Reiki master, and quantum energy healer, Nicole Harvick. Nicole brings a wealth of experience in the area of forgiveness, and she's going to share a lot of her wisdom in this program. So please join me in welcoming Nicole Harvick to the program.
Hello,
there you are.
David.
Look at that. That was
I'm
perfect
here.
timing.
How are you?
Thank you for being on the show today, Nicole. I know this is the first time that we've done this together. I was very intrigued by your concept of forgiveness, your ideas about forgiveness. And the way I'd like to start, since you're new to this program, I'd like to ask you a personal question, if you're willing, and maybe it might require a little bit of vulnerability. I hope you're okay with that.
I'm fine with that. Yep,
right.
I sure am.
So I know for me, a lot of the things that I teach, a lot of the things that I talk about in my life emanate out of my own personal experience of some kind of struggle that I've had. Now, if you have chosen, as I understand it, to become a forgiveness coach of sorts, and so you therefore have tended to focus a great deal of time and energy on that topic of forgiveness. So if you don't mind, would you share a little bit of your journey about what happened in your life that led you to understand the importance of this really amazing tool?
I would love to share that because I think it's so important for people to understand that the reason I even began this journey of coaching, of healing, of becoming a forgiveness expert is because of what I went through. And what that was a divorce. And this was about 10 years ago. And it was pretty devastating. I'm not going to lie to you. I never really saw it coming. I probably should have, but I overlooked a lot of things. But the way I found out was even more disturbing to me. And this is one of the reasons that I really had to look for forgiveness for him. But one day, my youngest daughter, who was in 6th grade at the time, was staying. We had year-round school, so she was with her grandparents in California. And she called me up and she was whispering to me and she says, "Mom, I think Dad has a girlfriend." And I said, "What are you talking about? Why would you think that?" She says, "Well, I'm getting a lot of texts and a lot of pictures." So I'm like, and you know what? It still didn't register, David. And I said, "Okay, send them to me." Well, come to find out, her iPad was synced to her dad's phone. They were sharing the Wi-Fi. So
Oh boy.
however this happened, I don't know. It's a horrible way, but I think the universe really just had to push me, just to my knees to help me understand that this is not the person for you. So she sent me texts and she sent me pictures, and it was just like, it was absolutely jaw-dropping. It was devastating. I was devastated for her at 10 years old to have to find this out, but that's just the way it happened. So that is what really started my journey, David.
Right, right. Yeah, and I can totally imagine what kind of pain that you went into when that happened. Um, and so tell me a little bit about that. Did you start having judgments about him first, or did you start having judgments about yourself, or what happened in that process?
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I always had some idea that there was something going on. There were little innuendos, there were little things I'd find, but I never had anything tangible. And this man was a pro at lying. He was a narcissist, I know now. But the first person that I got mad at was myself, because I started thinking, what did I do wrong? Wasn't I enough? What could I have done different? And I was so embarrassed that I had found out he was cheating on me. I told my daughter, I said, this has to be kept in the family. I said, you can't tell your grandparents, which were his parents, because I was ashamed that had happened to me. I was absolutely ashamed. And that continued for quite some time, that I thought I was in the wrong. I thought I did something wrong. What could I have done different? And so that's how that journey started. And man, I have to tell you, I went to counselors. I went to women's groups. I have more certificates than you can even imagine in healing modalities, because I knew I had to heal myself, because what was happening is I was internalizing blame and shame and just imagining horrible things about myself. What could I have done different? Why didn't I do this? You should have done that. And I was really blaming myself.
Right.
And so I knew I was starting to get sick. I was starting to get really sick, and my hair was falling out. And I was scratching my skin until it bled. It was that bad. And migraines. I mean, I thought to myself, you know what? If you don't do something, you're going to get really, really sick. And so I just started trying to learn every modality I could, from sound healing to cellular memory retrieval. I was going to people to try to help me release everything. And I'm not saying it wasn't working. It was helping me tremendously, but there was just like something was missing. Something was absolutely missing. And during this time, I was going to take a trip to Hawaii with my daughters. And so I have guides that talk to me, that tell me what to do or tell me what I should look for. Well, I was going to the big island of Hawaii, which, that comes up from the earth. It's that land is very, very sacred. So my guides told me, they said, feed the stray. When you're there, feed the stray. So I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm like, and it's really interesting. They'll tell you, but that's it. It's like, okay, you're smart. You're on your own. You get to figure this out. Right. So I get there and I am looking for dogs, because my daughter and I rescue dogs. Exactly. I mean, my daughter would call me in the middle of the night, Mom, we've got to rescue this dog. And I'm like, oh, where is it? And so I've always just assumed that feed the stray would be a dog. So, I kind of kept food with me the whole trip. It was like 10 days and nothing felt right. Absolutely nothing felt right. So one day we decide to hike the Kilauea volcano, which was active while we were there. And so I have a backpack. I have some food in it because it's about a half a day trip. So I'm crossing this ravine, and it's some places in Hawaii are like 100, you go back a long way, and there's just slats, and I'm crossing this ravine, and there's rope. And I heard right in the middle of that, make an offering to the island. So I'm like, and it doesn't have to be something lavish. It's just that you've honored the island. So I took out like half my sandwich and threw it in the ravine. And so my daughter and I continue on this hike. Feed this. Yeah. Well, that's the funny part, is because probably 5 minutes after we got off that bridge, I heard a rustling in the foliage, and we looked down, and there was this little bird with a hobbled foot. And my daughter bent down and fed it. It was hungry. She fed it out. It hopped up and ate out of her hand. And my guides told me, that's the stray. There's your stray. So I assumed it was a dog, but it wasn't. So when I left Hawaii and got back to the mainland, got back home, everywhere I started seeing the word Ho'oponopono.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never heard of it before. I used to live on Hawaii. I've been to the islands many, many times. And I thought, I have never seen this in my life. What is this? So I just started researching it, and it's four very simple phrases. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And thank you. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I can do it, but it's free. It's, I've been paying all this money to learn all this stuff. And here the island had gifted me something to help me with my forgiveness. And I just heard my guide say, just try it. Just try it. And so I started every night before I went to bed, and every morning when I woke up, which is kind of that in-between time where your subconscious can capture things. I just started saying it over and over and over in my mind. And probably after about 2 months of doing this, it was just kind of like a weight had lifted. I wasn't perfect, but I started feeling things melt away. And I'm like, well, this must be what forgiveness feels like, that I'm letting it go. And I would still have anger, but what I was doing is I was really forgiving myself, because
Exactly.
I didn't make him cheat. I didn't force him to cheat. He did that on his own. And so what was happening is I was healing myself by forgiving myself. Right. Didn't even know that was a thing back then. But man, I have to tell you, once I started feeling those inner feelings of coming back, of, I wouldn't even say love right then, but at least I accepted myself and accepted that was not my fault that he did that. He made a choice. And then I really went on this mission to find out, what is forgiveness? What is this all about? How does this work? How can I utilize this? And when I finally came to the realization that forgiveness is for you, you're not condoning what they did. You don't even have to ever see them again or talk to them. Right. I was like, oh, this is good. And that was, I'm not saying that was quick. I mean, that was over probably a 2.5, 3 year period that I took all that on, and then, slowly releasing. But I will tell you that when I started looking within myself and looking back at some of the things I needed to forgive myself for, I thought about it, and I thought, a lot of things that I didn't always do with bad intention. They might not have turned out right, but I knew that I had did it with all of the information that I had in that moment of that now.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
It's all I could do. I did my best. And so when I realized that, I thought, well, maybe other people's decisions were kind of like mine. They made it didn't turn out correctly or like they would like, but it wasn't always with bad intention. Now, that did not cross over to my ex. I will say that, because that was with very bad intention, But
well, you don't know. I mean, it's funny about the whole idea. I mean, we're really getting deep already. So thank you very much, first of all, for sharing that whole journey. That sounds like there was a lot of great learning there. And one thing that comes to my mind, I don't know, maybe this has come to your mind already or not, I don't know. Imagine if your husband had never done what he did. would you be in a better place now or in a worse place now? This
You
is
know
this
what?
is a question. I always ask myself that question. If he hadn't, if this person hadn't mistreated me or whatever, would I have come to the decisions that I came to now through some other means? Would I have learned about the power of this amazing tool if that hadn't happened? Maybe. But
You know
what
what?
I'm getting at is that even when somebody does something really awful in your life, when you can get to that place of forgiveness, you can probably also come to a place of gratitude, saying, I don't really like what you did, but I thank you for doing it because it helped me to get where I am now. And you don't have to say it to the person either, by the way. I'm just saying
Right.
you can adopt that as a kind of a mental attitude for yourself. And I believe that it really helps to expand and deepen the healing process.
I love that you asked this question. I love how you're explaining it, because oftentimes we can only see things when we look back on them, from
Mm-hmm.
where I was to where I am now. Now, in my opinion, and this is just mine, you really can't be an adequate coach unless you have experienced something like this, because I can
Right.
really empathize with people. And as I look back, I have reframed it to, it didn't happen to me, happened for me.
Yeah.
This has built my life up in such an amazing way. And now, it was horrible going through it, but I thought to myself, so many people think we get to a certain age and we can't change, we can't be different, we can't do something new. But this allowed me to actually understand that if I could do it, anybody could, and I could help them. I could help them through that journey, because it's not easy. It's not easy, but I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at him, and I tell people, I said, love is our highest, one of our highest vibrations at 500. I said, and I send my ex love, but on a soul level. I send it to his soul, because he cannot love himself. And I know that after being with him like 25 years. And
Right.
I don't want anybody to miss out on that feeling. Now, do I talk to him? I don't anymore, because both our kids, are 18 and or 21 and 29. At the time, my daughter, she was younger, so I had to communicate. And no, I don't, but I still send that, when she
Right.
tells me, Dad's struggling with this. And it's like, what I send out comes back to me. And I don't want any hate, animosity, anger in my field. So I
Right.
always send out love in a situation like this.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I noticed you said love at 500. So clearly you're a student of David R. Hawkins.
Love, 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 love. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've read I haven't read all of his books, but I am on the one called Healing and Recovery, which is really awesome. Pardon me.
I'll have to find that one, because I am a huge fan of his. Yes,
Right.
there were just some of those books that change your life, and that was
Yeah.
one of them. The Power of the Subconscious Mind. When I realized my power,
Right.
and the
Well,
four
I
agreements.
started reading David Hawkins probably about 2 or 3 years ago. And I was taken by it. I just bought all his books in one big purchase off of Amazon. So
Mm,
I've been going through them one at a time. And I think that his general understanding of consciousness is very valid. I don't know that I agree with all of his perspectives, but I mean, how can anybody have a complete perspective that is 100% right? Um, I'm sure he's made mistakes in his books, but nevertheless, he's obviously a man of very high vibration who learned how to write in words what we probably need to hear. So it's a really,
exactly.
really good
Exactly.
series of books. And
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Actually, he talks about love at 500 and then unconditional love at 540, which I found interesting. There's a
Yeah,
distinction
that is
between the two.
interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, but getting back to the idea of forgiveness, you mentioned that it's not about the other person. I think that's a good place for us to start. we need to, I think, dispel some of the myths about forgiveness. What it is, what it isn't. And I think you hit the nail on the head. When I forgive someone, it's not about me saying I agree with what he or she did. It's not saying I think what that person did was okay, that I'm condoning it, that I'm in any way, supporting it. What I am saying is when I forgive it, I am releasing myself from any attachment to justice, retribution, revenge, or any of those ideas that come forth from my ego mind.
I love
Because
that.
that's what keeps me from forgiving, is this story in my head. Oh, that guy did me wrong. I got to get even. That guy destroyed my life. I got to destroy his. That's ego talk right there. And it gets
Yes.
nobody anywhere fast, or everybody everywhere, everybody nowhere fast, whatever you want to say. So that's one point that I wanted to make.
You're right. Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's amazing how many people that I talk to that have that in their mind. Well, they don't deserve forgiveness. They did this to me. And I said, but if they don't deserve it and they did that to you and you want nothing to do with them, why are you still carrying that burden that they placed on you? Why do you continue to carry that around? And then they can see it a little differently. And when I learned it wasn't necessarily for him, it was for me. And that I never even had to tell him anything. I didn't have to talk to him, and I do remember talking with him at one point about it. And he told my girls, he says, well, if your mom's not practicing what she preaches because she won't get back together with me. And that has nothing to do with forgiveness.
Right.
You don't ever have to, you don't need them back in your life. You don't need to tell them, because it's all about you. And, I tell people if that person hurt you that badly and they didn't care, they might not remember, or you're waiting for an apology you're never going to get.
That's right.
Yep. You're never going to get it. And why are you going to have that immense hurt, pain, fear, whatever it is, whatever emotion that is? Why would you let that linger in your body?
Exactly. Well, and the other side of it is when I hold on to ideas of revenge or getting even or justice or any of that stuff, all I'm really doing is allowing myself to be injured all over again by the same injury that happened the first time. And there is no value for that at all. I am giving myself, I'm basically pulling myself into this place of victimhood, and I am locking myself there by refusing to forgive. Well, if I want to stop being a victim, that's the way I have to do it. I have to forgive. I have to let go. I have to release. And like you said, the other person doesn't even have to know. I don't ever have to say it to him or her. And, there are people out there who have had some grievous injury done to themselves. Some people have had, children killed, or maybe they've been raped, or they've had some horrible event happen in their life by someone who was drunk or just, whatever. And they say, well, that person just absolutely needs to go to hell and rot and burn and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I understand that you have that idea of justice and revenge, but it's not up to you. It's not up to you. And if you do make the mistake of going into some kind of a vendetta behavior and try to get even, you're going to be victimizing yourself in a whole new way. Because believe me, you'll be the one who goes to jail.
Exactly. And what you're actually doing is lowering yourself and your vibration to them. There's no lessons learned. You have to rise above it. You don't want to be mired in that lower vibration of pettiness and revenge. There's no lessons to be learned for anybody when you're meeting on that level. There's just not. And I always tell people that one of the things that I'm so grateful for that came out of this was once I started forgiving myself, I also started thinking about, well, I love my kids, love my parents, love my brothers, love my dog. never thought about loving me. Never entered my mind that that was a thing. And so I just started thinking, I'm a pretty good person. I love my kids. I love my friends. And I'm not, did I feel bad at one point? I did. I really felt useless and I felt worthless. And but I thought, but I took that on. It was really not mine to take. So I release you. And then I started doing some mirror work, and, I started doing self-care, and where I was told, you don't deserve, you're lazy, you're this, you're that. I thought, well, why am I letting him determine how I treat myself? And that switched it up, David. That switched it up big time. And like those light bulbs are like, oh my gosh, again, I know so many women that are suppressing their need of self based on what someone else thinks.
It's really fascinating to me. One of the things that I do with my clients, I do deep process shadow work with them. And one of the things that I have learned as a result of some of that work is I honestly believe that unless we are somehow mentally defective, or we got some weird chemical imbalance or something like that in our bodies, I am confident when I say that virtually everything that we all think, say, do, and feel is motivated at its deepest level by a desire to give or receive love. And that includes these horrible acts of violence that we see in the world, because most people are doing them out of some misguided sense of doing the right thing, getting even. That's their distorted view of what love really looks like, right? So we have that kind of distortion in our society. And when you can ask a person, if I take a person who did something, let's say I talked to, well, I'm not gonna pick any personal examples here. Let's say I talk to somebody who's committed murder, and I can get this person to speak honestly and openly to me. Then I would start asking questions like, okay, what was motivating you to commit murder? That guy deserved it. He was a bad guy. All right. Now, given that he was a bad guy, what were you feeling that led you to believe that murder was the only option? I was angry at him. Okay, let's take it a little bit deeper. You were feeling angry at him and he's a bad guy. What was really going on for you? What might have happened had you not killed him? And he might say something, well, he was going to kill me. So you had a fear that you were going to die if you didn't respond. Yes, great. Now we have something, because now we have a fear. And that fear was, what's he trying to do? He's trying to protect himself. He's trying to keep himself alive. Is that not an act of love? Self-love. Why did you want to stay alive? Well, because I got a lot of things I want to do in this world, and I want to give some stuff to the world. And if I take it deep enough and the guy softens enough, eventually I'll get his own shadow to say, yeah, I guess I really am trying to create more love in the world. It happens every time, And so it's either I'm trying to get love or I'm trying to give love. And to you and me who are watching from the outside, we may think that guy is totally messed up. But the fact that doesn't alter the motivational fact of that person's situation. As I said, as long as he's not suffering from some kind of other mental illness, an imbalance of some kind, he's affected by drugs or something. If he's being normal, but he's just reacting from his place of fear and anger, then it's probably motivated by some desire to give or receive love. It's complicated, but that's what I have learned.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right, because there's so many times that I'm working with someone and I will ask them why, and they'll give me an answer. Well, why? And you keep going backwards and backwards and backwards till you get to the root. And sometimes they can't even, get to the root unless we're in meditation or maybe light hypnosis. But there's always something there beyond just that first statement. There's always something there. And I think all of us have those, triggers in us, or those traumas in us that have been embedded so deeply that
absolutely
sometimes we're afraid to find them. Other
Yep.
times they come out of nowhere. They come out of, I'm like, well, where did that come from? I thought I got rid of that one. And you have to go back in and you have to do your work. And so I've just come to realize that even utilizing forgiveness like I do, it's an ongoing process, and healing is something that's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, healing is a process of becoming whole, isn't it?
Yes.
And so most of us aren't going to achieve wholeness until we pass out of this body and back into the spiritual realm. Um, there are some who can do it, of course, but those are pretty rare. People like David Hawkins, for example, who have done enough of that deep work and have learned something at a very early age and have been able to carry that through their lives. Or someone like Jesus, or the Buddha, or anybody else you care to
Right.
name who have, some higher level of consciousness. But even the Buddha and even Jesus had bouts of anger that they had to deal with.
Sure.
So,
I think that's just part of life,
yeah,
what you come up against. And I think everything is a learning tool, because, in looking back, what do you say? What did that teach me? How can I reframe that? What did I learn from that? That it happened to me or for me?
right. But even anger is not necessarily a bad thing. It's an energy of action for sure. It's an energy of sometimes reaction, strong reaction, but it's definitely an energy of action. It's a motivating force. And I believe that some forms of anger can actually be driven by love. So I could still, if I see somebody getting beat up or something, and I am moved to try and do something to stop that, I might be getting angry, but it's love and love of life and a tendency to keep life going that drives me to make that move in the first place.
Yeah.
And
And
what
I
we're
can
seeing in our
resonate with that.
society today is so many people have a fear of being hurt themselves that is overpowering that desire to step in and do something to help somebody else.
Yeah,
That is not
absolutely.
serving us.
Right. But what you're talking about too, coming from the mother's perspective, we get, we find out our kid does something, we get furious with them, but it's because they could have got hurt. You could have got kidnapped. You could have, OD'd, whatever it is.
Right.
And it's like, that's a fear emanating for that deep love of your child.
Exactly. Yeah. So, we shouldn't condemn fear or anger or any of the other so-called negative emotions. Obviously, if someone is in that space all the time and is acting out of that space all the time, there's likely a problem that needs to be addressed. But most people, I find, are pretty neutral most of the time. And they only get into that state of anger or fear when something really bad is going to be happening or appears to be about to happen or something like that. It's usually it's an ego mind reaction most of the time.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I've noticed on this journey of forgiveness, of self-love. I didn't want to be an ego all the time. I wanted to really shed that, because it can serve you, yes. But what I found is that the more I let go of the aspect of ego, I found myself not judging, not for lack of caring, but I just started understanding, just as I have my thoughts, my feelings, that person does too. And who am I to condemn them? And then I noticed as I took that path that my vibrations started rising up, and I can feel it. I can feel that.
Absolutely.
And
Mm-hmm.
I noticed something very organic start happening to me, was that many people that I used to, like, I would say, be friends with or hang around with, what I noticed with me is that all of a sudden, my body doesn't tolerate alcohol at all. I mean, not at all. I just went through this bodily upgrade, I guess, but you don't have anything in common with some of the people that you've used to associate with. And so it wouldn't be fun for me to go sit in loud music with people that are drinking. just
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
it's when you're not doing it, it has a whole different vibe to it, you know. And so I just noticed some friends, and it's not out of meanness or anger, but there was no resonance there. You know, we were just different frequencies, so we
Yeah.
didn't match. And
Right.
then I noticed more people coming into my life that did. And, you know, these new friendships being created, or, you know, and then there were ideas floating around. And it's very interesting because it's almost like they're brought to you or you're brought to them. You know, these people that they're pulled to you because of your frequency. So
Mm-hmm.
I found that to be very interesting.
Right. You know, and so now we're getting into the topic of relationship, which I find interesting too. The which is also, you know, tied to this whole forgiveness thing. Obviously, the best relationships are the ones where both people can come from a place of forgiveness. But as you were talking, I am reminded of a little visual that I had a while back about relationships. You know, it's kind of like two people just kind of moving along on a like two rivers or something, and then they kind of come together for whatever reason, and they're going to be intermingling for a while. You know, now that little while could be a whole lifetime, or it could just be seconds, or it could be, you know, a short interaction. But every one of those little interactions is a relationship, and every single one of them has value in our lives, even if we don't necessarily recognize the value at the moment that it happens. So, what I like to remember is all the people that I used to hang out with before, back when I used to drink, back when I used to smoke, back when I used to party like an animal. You know, those people served a purpose in my life, and I'm grateful for them.
Right.
But you
Right.
know, I made a decision somewhere along the way to shift myself out of that, and they decided not to. Okay, that's fine. You're going to go on doing what you do, and that's your choice. I can't do this anymore. It's not me. It doesn't feel right for me anymore. So I'm going to be moving on, and I'm just not going to be interacting with you in those circumstances. You know, we may still see each other from time to time and have a conversation or whatever, go for lunch or something. But I'm not going to do that sort of stuff anymore because it's not resonating with who I am. So that's how, you know, we start the split. And consider your marriage, for example. You know, you came together. You said you were together for 25 years, and then you had this kind of turmoil that happened as part of your relationship, and it's kind of that turmoil that helped you to get into your state of forgiveness. And now you're moving on, and I guess he's gone his own way. And
Mm-hmm.
but that's the way relationships work. You know,
Right. The ebb and flow. Yeah.
that's
The
right.
ebb and
And there's
flow of it.
no requirement, I believe, there's no requirement for any relationship to be forced to last longer than it's meant to last. You know, I think this till death do us part thing is that really bothers me, you know?
Yeah, it because we, you know, if you look back just from the time you were a teen to, you know, you're 20, we have morphed so many times over our lifetime.
Exactly.
If I look back in my 30s, I don't even recognize who that person was, you know,
I know.
and if I look back 5 years ago, and we should be changing and morphing just as new things come along or new things interest us. And, you know, I was talking to someone the other day, and they asked me what I haven't started dating. And I said, because I'm really just getting to know me. Who am I? What do I like? You know, and I don't want to jump into anything because I looked back and I had an absolute type that I went for every time.
Right.
And I thought, oh my, I saw it. And I thought, well, I need to know this new me and her desires. And so I always tell people, look, I'm just dating myself. You know, this is the first time in my life you know, I like me. I like who I become. You know, I feel good about myself, and I want to make others feel good about themselves. And you know, I can't have a conversation with someone anymore if they, you know, they want to do it over a beer and tell me about, you know, what football team won on Sunday and what they bet and what they drive. And it's just like, well, you have to be able to talk about the moon, the stars, vibration, Tesla, I have to have some deep conversations anymore, because I'm more of a deep thinker in terms of there's a lot out there and I want to know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, you're going to probably get some people who will say, maybe not directly to your face, "Oh, so you think you're better than me?"
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And maybe, I don't think that, but I do think I'm different than you, not better.
Right. Yeah.
We're just not on that same vibrational path. I'm not judging you. I hope you don't judge me, but this is who I am
that's
now.
another fun thing. I tell people, thank you so much for your judgments. They say more about you than they say about me.
True,
and
very true.
People don't like to hear that, but I say, well, here's my perspective. Any thought that I have about you is my projection. It has nothing to do with you. It might be true in your life, but it doesn't have to be. It's just me having a perspective and having an opinion based on whatever information has been presented to me. Now, I could formally call that a judgment, because that's what it is. It's just not necessarily a harsh one, But every time I think about somebody else and I say this person is this or that or the other thing, that's a judgment. Even if I say, you're a beautiful woman, that's my judgment. You may or may not agree with that statement. I hope that in your spiritual self, you do agree with it. And I hope that in your physical self, you agree with it too. But the point I'm trying to make is, it doesn't matter whether you agree with it or not. It's still my projection.
True.
And that's something that I had to learn. And it came out actually as a result of my work on forgiveness, is understanding that all of my projections are true for me, but not necessarily true for you. And so this is why I've learned a bunch of different tools for sharing feedback, sharing withholds. If I have an issue with you and I don't tell you about it, then what happens is it builds up. If you do something and I'm not happy with it for whatever reason, and I don't say anything, you may not have any idea that I've even been triggered. Well, you might say, he's acting weird.
Yeah.
You'll notice that my trigger is affecting other behaviors, and you might wonder what's going on with him. So if I have the courage to come to you when that little tiny thing happens and say, I just noticed I have a reaction to something that you just did. Are you open to me sharing this with you? And then just share it. Yeah. This is my reaction. This is what you did. This is my reaction. And I just want to leave that there. You don't have to do anything about it. I just wanted to share it with you. Yeah. Because if I ask you to do something about it, now I'm asking you to change to satisfy me, so I don't have to worry about my triggers anymore.
Yeah. So it's actually kind of selfish, if you're doing it for that. It's actually selfish, but it's real interesting that you bring that up, because for so long in my marriage, I did shut my voice down. I had huge issues with speaking my truth. And, a trigger came up just like a couple weeks ago. And it was actually during the eclipse. It was some weird energy. Oh, yeah. And who I was mad at? I was mad at myself for not speaking my truth. And so what I have learned through that, like you say, if you express it, then you express it like wholly and honestly. But if you let it just build and build and build, to the point where you explode on someone, then it's not going to be effective. And you're giving people the option. Do you mind if I tell you something? So I love that aspect of it too, that you've kind of let them know, but you're saying it right then and there in that moment. And that way it doesn't, like mine 20 years later, I'm a little cranky, because I've kept my mouth shut. I've kept that bottled up for so long,
Well, so and as you already know, I'm sure, keeping anything bottled up is just a recipe for disaster. it's when you don't allow yourself to express whatever emotional energy you're feeling, then you trap it in your body. And people now know what damage that can cause. And it can manifest
Oh,
in a lot of
yes.
different ways, from something simple like an allergic reaction to something really serious like, liver failure or cancer or some damn thing.
Yeah, and that is so true. And I'm going to give you a quick example. And it was actually a huge epiphany for me, is my mother got sick before I was divorced, and she had breast cancer. And by the time we found out, she was already stage 4. Well, her and my dad had been divorced for about 20 years. And the whole time, all she ever said was, I forgave him. I forgive him. I've forgiven him. I've forgiven him. That's all we ever heard. And she died on January 3rd, and about December, she was at my house in December 25th or 26th, and we're sitting there, and she looked at me and she says, she says, he slept with all my friends. I'm like, what? She goes, your dad. And, and I'd known of the problem, so it wasn't anything new to me. But what was new to me was the fact that she had always said she'd forgiven him, yet it came up days before she died. Mm-hmm. And what my epiphany was for this is because I was still kind of in the throes of just finding out and, about my ex, what he did, is I thought to myself, there is no way a man is going to take my life. There's no way, because my mother kept that in her. The anger, the pain, the hurt, the fear, those were all emotions that were never released because she did not forgive him. So that was quite an epiphany for my journey. When she said that, I thought, who says that 3 days before they die?
Right. That's really
she took
sad.
it with her.
Yeah. Well, and here's something else. My mom, I had a lot of anger and judgment about my mom for years, and I didn't really even realize it. I mean, it was all buried so deep. It didn't even come out until probably around 2003. So by that time, I was already 50 years old, and I had just kind of started my journey in 1997, I think, and I came to learn just how much anger and hatred I had towards my mom. And after I'd figured out how to forgive her, which really she didn't even need any forgiveness, as it turns out, I came to the understanding that she just did the best she could with the tools that she had at the time, that in her own way, she did love me. She treated me actually pretty well. And my holding on to all this anger wasn't serving anybody, I think she had a lot of anger towards herself too, because this is really bizarre. It's interesting that you mentioned this. In 1992, on the Mother's Day weekend, actually, in May of 1992, she informed us that she had breast cancer, and she was actually going into the hospital. She'd known about this for 3 years and hadn't told us.
Mom. Wow. That's so ironic. Ironic. My mom did too.
That's serendipitous coincidence. That's what that is. The two of us having the same thing happen with our moms. And so anyway, she went into the hospital on the Mother's Day weekend of 1992 and died on June. Now I'm forgetting the date of her death. I think it was June 14th of 1992. And I remember the whole time, I spent almost every night in the hospital. The dutiful son. And I was by her bedside. And she was on morphine and stuff, so she never even knew, I don't think, that I was there. But I knew that I was there. And I actually was there the day she took her last breath. So I watched that whole process. And then that's when my drinking really got bad after that. Because, of course, that's the way the whole McLeod family dealt with stuff like that. We had martinis flowing like water in the house. And I must have been drunk for another 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I never really I never really expressed any grief about my mom's passing. All I could feel was anger at the choices that she'd made and all this kind of stuff. So it's really interesting to me that I held on to that for quite a while. And there was anger for other reasons too, but that's beside the point. And it wasn't until 2003 that I was finally able to release it. And that release, let me tell you, it was at a men's gathering, and it was an explosive release. It was like a volcano erupted within me.
Wow.
But it was the best possible situation. All these men standing around me, supporting me, providing their loving elder and warrior energy, and allowing me to just get this stuff out of me, you know? And after that was over, after I got rid of the anger and the rage that was inside me, then came the tears, the grief, oh my God. And it felt like it was going to last forever, but the whole process lasted about 30 minutes.
Wow.
And when that was done, I had this amazing, beautiful golden blue energy fill my body. And all I felt was love. And I didn't really remember seeing this until just now. I think my mom's energy was actually there somehow. And I think that's when I started the formal process of forgiving her. And so now I'm able to see her in a much better way. So the reason I'm sharing that is that the power of forgiveness is absolutely incredible. I believe that it is the most powerful force anywhere.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And when you talk about, you shut yourself down at times, because you've been, whether it's married or your mom dying, whatever it is, you just layer your heart over and over and over with armor till you can't even feel it. So I'm like you, I've been peeling back for so long, that now I cry when Dorothy leaves Oz in The Wizard of Oz. It's like, oh my God, she's leaving the Tin Man and the Scarecrow. I mean, but that's, I look now as my ability to be vulnerable is a superpower.
Yeah, it is. And you say that I think generally speaking in our society, it's easier for women to be vulnerable than it is for men. But I want to say, for any men who are watching this, male vulnerability is an absolutely amazing and beautiful thing. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're, giving up your power or anything like that. It just means that you're willing to own what's going on in here. Own it, express it, and be okay with it. That's really what I think vulnerability is all about.
I love that. I love that because, I only have 2 daughters, but, I've seen back in the day, little boys don't cry. Suck it up. You don't cry. You don't talk about it. You don't do this. You don't do that. Right. It's like, but they hurt too. Mm-hmm. Why are we telling them not to express their emotions? Because there again, there comes the armoring of the heart, and there comes the trapped emotions. There comes the trauma. And, many, many, many years later, people like you and I have to go find that and pull it out.
That's right.
Get rid of it. And so if we started way back when, just using our voices, coming from our heart with things, we might never have to do that as much as we do now.
Right. And yeah, that's totally, absolutely correct. And I think where it comes from is this idea of self-forgiveness. Each of us is on a journey, our own individual journey. It may be driven by something from our spirit. I believe it is. But ultimately, we are on this physical journey for a reason, and we're going to make mistakes. You're going to make decisions based on the information that you have at the moment. Some of those decisions may have unexpected, maybe undesirable, maybe even catastrophic consequences. But if you're coming from a place of truly trying to express just the truth of who you are and not deliberately trying to be malevolent, then what is really to forgive? I honestly believe 95% of what we think, say, and do and feel has no need to be forgiven. But
True.
if it helps to make you feel better, go ahead and forgive yourself. Because when you forgive yourself, then you can really embrace a true sense of self-love and self-acceptance.
Finally. Finally, after all these years for me, it took a lifetime, but I sit there and think that was a journey I signed up for when I decided to come here. So I feel that I put it on my own timeline. So I can't blame anyone but me. But I look back and it helps me understand that I went through everything I needed to get to this point, to lead up to this, to find the life I want, the love I have for myself, the forgiveness in my heart. And now I can help others, whether they're younger, older, it doesn't matter. But there is a way that you can help yourself and find yourself and still understand who you are, no matter what age you are, no matter what you've been through, if you truly desire to work on yourself and help yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And of course, I think that, we've talked about a lot of things here, but this idea of self-love, self-care, self-acceptance, all those things really are important if we wish to do anything to raise our own vibration.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And it doesn't have to be difficult. For me, self-care is I've got yoga tonight, at 6 p.m. That is my way of caring for myself. It can be a bath. Some people are like, well, I can't afford to go on vacation. It's like, it doesn't have to be a vacation. Take a day for yourself and get yourself some flowers and some bath salts. You're invested $10 and 20 minutes of your time going to the store. That is self-love. You've done it just for you and you deserve it. It doesn't have to be lavish.
That's right. It doesn't. It has to I think it has to be intentional, more than,
Yes.
more than the specific details. If you know that you're treating yourself with care and with love, that's all that really matters. I mean, think about, your dog. You got a dog or a cat or whatever. What does your dog love? Your dog loves attention. Your dog loves when you give him a big hug. Well, give yourself a big hug.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And and when you talk about it that way, a dog just loves you. They
That's
love
right.
you. Why can't you love you like your dog
Exactly.
does?
Yeah.
It would be a much better world.
Well, I think, yeah, absolutely. It would be a much better world. But before we close out, I want to make sure we talk about this raising of awareness, or a raising of energy and vibration, because that's an important part of our topic. And I know you had more that you wanted to say about that.
And for me, it's been a journey, and the way I've done it is I do a lot of meditation. And I do a lot of grounding. And one of the best ways to eliminate pain and to raise your vibration is walk on the grass or walk on sand. Anything that connects you to your earth. We're electrical beings, and the earth will provide everything we need. And I was talking to a friend the other day, and they said, we used to make fun of the tree huggers. I said, yeah, I go out and hug my oak tree every night and thank it for being here. But it makes you feel so good. And for me, I told someone the other day, I said, I wish everybody could wake up the way I do every morning. And that is in gratitude. When everybody thinks that, a miracle has to be some big, huge thing. And I'm like, no, it can be your first breath in the morning upon awakening, when you realize your body's kept you alive all night. That's right. Gratitude. All of those things. And to me, it's very, very simple. But all of those things are going to raise your vibration. They're going to raise your frequency. They're going to expand your heart, because you're thinking outside of yourself into nature. And nature is your medicine. everything in nature is your medicine, right down to, herbs. And I always tell people everything that we've ever needed to heal ourselves is either inside of us or given to us by our mother, Gaia, Pachamama, whatever you want to call her. It's all here, and the one thing that I'll tell you, this drives me crazy, is dandelions are not a weed. No, that's like my pet peeve. It's like heart medicine,
Right.
so those are some and if you're just starting, those are simple things to do. Those are very simple things to do. I've got tuning forks, I've got singing bowls, chanting. But if you're just starting and you really just want to start feeling maybe a little better about yourself, or feeling a little more electric or a little more alive, go find some grass and walk on it. Go outside and breathe that air, not the air in your house. It's really quite simple, and it's miraculous.
Right. Well, one thing I would recommend people do: stand in front of a mirror and say, "I love you," and just see how you feel when you say that.
Yeah. You can feel your heart expand, make eye contact with you. That I did a lot of mirror work to heal. And, at first it's kind of hard. You're like, I'm uncomfortable doing this. But then it's like, you know what? I do love you. For me, I've come to understand that I'm a very caring person. I want to help people. And when you start understanding your need to give back because you've been given so much, then all of a sudden you realize, there's more to this life than just sitting on a couch or drinking a beer or watching TV. I want to give. I want to expand. I want other people to feel like I do. And I feel gratitude every morning. I just look around and, people are like, oh, yeah, right. But I do. I wake up and it's like, this feels good. This feels good. I'm awake. I made it through another night. My body took care of me. I'm ready to go.
Of course. Well, I want to thank you, Nicole, for being here today. It's been a fabulous conversation, and our time, unfortunately, is up. So I just wonder if you have any final words you'd like to share before I close us out.
What I would like to share with everyone is, not often do you realize it, but you are so worthy. You are so worthy of loving yourself. You are a miraculous human being. You have far more potential than you probably think you do. And there's people watching you. You don't even realize this, but there's a lot of people that might be watching you saying, oh, he or she is so lucky. Oh, I wish I could be like them. And we don't even think about it in terms like that, and be the example for people. Be the example for people and make it simple for them. But truly, each and every one of us has so many special things inside of them. By virtue of your fingerprint, you are unique. I always tell people, you're a horse of a different color. There's only one of you, and you're it. Right. Can you tell I like the Wizard of Oz? So everybody's spectacular. Just go find it in yourself.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much again, Nicole. I really appreciate having you here. And everyone, I just want to remind you that, yeah, you're welcome. Forgiveness enables you to surrender past hurts, embrace empathy and compassion, and cultivate a brighter future filled with joy and possibility. So take advantage of this tool and welcome a life filled with compassion, growth, and abundance. Thank you all for watching today's program. And remember, you can catch the recordings of this and every other episode on my website at lifemasterytv.com. And finally, I'd like to remind you to practice the Life Mastery mantra every day. Remember, it goes like this: I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, my name is David McLeod. I am your Life Mastery Coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. I'll see you next time right here on Life Mastery TV. Bye-bye.